All right, think about this for a second. What if you had a paycheck that just never stopped? I mean, it shows up every single month for the rest of your life. Well, that's pretty much the promise behind a really powerful financial tool called a life annuity. And it's designed to solve one of the biggest, maybe the biggest question we all face when we think about retirement. So let's dive in and see how it all works.
So, to really get why annuities even exist in the first place, we've got to look at a very specific and actually pretty modern problem that, let's be honest, a lot of us are probably going to face.
And here it is. This is the absolute core of the challenge. The good news is we're living longer than ever before. I mean, that's fantastic, right? But it also creates this very real risk, the chance that you could actually outlive your savings. The pros, the financial planners, they've got a name for this. They call it longevity risk. So that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you make sure your money lasts exactly as long as you do?
Well, the financial industry's answer to that exact problem is the life annuity. And at its heart, it's a pretty straightforward deal. You give a life insurance company a lump sum of money, and in return, they make you a promise. They will send you a regular payment for as long as you live. Simple as that.
A really good way to think about this is like creating your own personal pension plan. I mean, most people don't get those traditional pensions anymore, right? So an annuity lets you kind of build one for yourself. It's a really unique kind of insurance when you think about it. Instead of protecting your family from you dying too soon, it's basically insuring you against, living too long and running out of cash.
Okay, but annuity isn't just one single thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of product. They actually come in a few main flavors, and each one is designed for a slightly different need.
So let's quickly run through them and see what makes each of these four types unique.
All right, so the first big difference really comes down to duration. How long do the payments last? On one hand, you've got the whole life annuity. This is the classic model we've been talking about. It pays you for your entire life. Doesn't matter how long that is. Then, on the other hand, you have the temporary annuity. And just like the name says, it only pays out for a fixed period of time, say 5 or 10 years, and then it's done. Okay, so beyond how long the payments last, the next big question you've got to ask is, when do they start? And this introduces a whole other layer of flexibility. And that's exactly where the deferred annuity comes into play. So picture this. You might buy it when you're 50, but you set it up so the payments don't actually start until you plan to retire, maybe at age 65. That waiting period is super important because it lets your money grow, which often means you get bigger payments once they finally do start. It's a really powerful way to plan ahead for the future. Now, a lifelong income stream, that sounds pretty amazing, right? But it brings up this huge question. How on earth can an insurance company put a price on a promise like that? A promise that could last 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. How do they do that? Well, believe it or not, this isn't just a wild guess. There's a very precise science behind how they price an annuity, and it all comes down to balancing just a few key variables. And the core concept behind all of it is something called the expected present value, or EPV for short. You can think of this as kind of the magic number that represents the fair price today for that whole stream of future income you're buying. Now, calculating this EPV sounds super complex, but it really involves 3 pretty clever steps. First, they discount all those future payments to account for interest, the time value of money. $1 today is worth more than $1 in 20 years. Second, and this is really the secret sauce, they use all this life expectancy data to figure out the probability that you'll actually be alive to receive each and every one of those future payments. And finally, they just sum it all up. They add together all those probability-adjusted payments to get to that single, fair price for the annuity today. And honestly, this elegant dance between interest rates and mortality statistics, that is the absolute heart of actuarial science. It's how they take this incredibly complex, uncertain future and boil it down into one single predictable price for you right here, right now. Okay, this brings us to our final type of annuity. And this one was designed to solve what is probably the single biggest fear people have when they even think about buying one. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that big what if. What if you take a huge chunk of your life savings, you buy this annuity, and then you pass away after only getting 1 or 2 payments? For so many people, that thought right there is the biggest barrier. It feels like a massive, massive gamble. So to solve for that exact fear, the industry came up with the guaranteed annuity. And what it does is it adds a safety net. The company basically promises to make payments for a minimum amount of time, say 10 years, no matter what happens. So if you were to pass away in year 3, your beneficiary, like your spouse or your kids, would still get paid for those remaining 7 years. And that guarantee feature is just absolutely crucial. I mean, think about it. It protects your initial investment, it gives your family incredible peace of mind, and heck, it even protects the insurance company from a PR nightmare. It really is a win-win that makes the whole idea of an annuity so much more attractive to people.
And that really brings us to the fundamental trade-off at the heart of all this, doesn't it? On one hand, a life annuity offers this incredible, almost unmatched security of an income you literally cannot outlive. But in exchange for that security, you have to give up the flexibility of keeping that money as a big lump sum. So the real question for you to think about is, what's the right balance? The right balance between that guaranteed income for life and the flexibility of keeping your savings close. Answering that, well, that's one of the key questions in planning for a truly confident retirement.